All right, I think we could get started. I am not Greg Newton.
Our teachers, I'm out of here.
Yeah. So between following Wesley, I thought, it had a lot of wisdom to share that was really timely and insightful, and the usual Greg, amazingness that you should prepare for disappointment. But I think because it was me who, in the middle of a kind of midlife crisis burnout episode, asked Greg to talk about Ecclesiastes. He asked me if I would fill in for him this week. So it's not a competency-based assignment. It's actually the opposite. So I'll rely on you guys. I'm hoping we can have some discussion. And we'll do things as much as possible with interaction. So I think we're continuing Greg's discussion on Ecclesiastes. I don't know if anybody is here who hadn't been here for some of those. I think this would be the third installment, I believe. And to catch us all up and frame us, my interpretation of what Greg has been showing us about Ecclesiastes is that it's famously nihilistic language, but it has a lot of wisdom that really actually echoes more hopeful messages that are scattered throughout Scripture and that we know and recognize as hopeful. But it's sort of this is my language here, but I think it's a book about deconstruction. It's about it's a pragmatic and realistic, clear-eyed take on ways that we can confuse ourselves about reality, and it offers the reader kind of a blank space to fill in with what to put in that spot instead of the kind of illusions that we might chase. I think it does actually strongly suggest that we put God in that hole. But I think Scripture gives us a lot of more explicit instruction on what to put in that gap, and that's what I want to explore today. I'm also hoping to kind of call out some things that I noticed that I found helpful in using Ecclesiastes to give me more insight into the meaning of New Testament scriptures where we're going to be focusing. So before doing that, I thought I would ask for we would frame our thinking a couple ways. So up here are the Beatitudes. This is a ChatGPT translation that I asked it to do. The instruction I gave it was to, because I find Scripture, I have to think really hard about every word sometimes to take away my baggage from those words. And it's inevitable, I think, in language. Words evolve, their meaning evolves. I think for partly the way I grew up, partly the way the history of the printing press was invented, and all sorts of reasons. These words that translators use can get muddied up, not for Scripture's fault, but for mine, mixed in with kind of other meanings that I associate with ways I've heard those words used. And so I asked it to give me, to go back to the original Greek and try to take out as much of that baggage as possible, and give me something that I could read where I could believe that each word was kind of fresh and had less imprint from culture and even from, even wise, I think, church leaders who've put their own imprint on the meanings of things. So just as a way to kind of help us see it anew. And this is the passage in Matthew 5, if you want to follow along, where this is drawn from. And I found it helpful and thought I would use this. What we're going to do is sort of unpack each of these Beatitudes and look for parallels in Ecclesiastes and discuss them. This is similar. Greg actually scooped this idea last week, so sorry, he already did it better, but he didn't spend as much time on it as I hope to today. So, also, to frame us, Alan, I thought we might as well get you involved early. And would you be willing to read a passage for me? I should have asked you before class. But do you have do you have a text? Could you go to 2 Corinthians 4? So, although we're going to be talking out of the Beatitudes, just wanted to, before we start to highlight that this is, we could have thrown a dart at any New Testament passage and done this, I think. And all of Paul's and James's writings and Peter, like, you'll find very similar sort of resonance between, the truths in Ecclesiastes and just the unique perspective it gives us that I think complements what is said. So 2 Corinthians 4, 13 through the end of the chapter, so 13 through 18.
Okay. My little Bible app has an easy-to-read version. Would you like the easy-to-read version?
Whatever you choose is fine.
Harmony with your ChatGPT.
Yeah.
The scriptures say, I believed, so I spoke. Our faith is like that too. We believe, and so we speak. God raised the Lord Jesus from death, and we know that he will also raise us with Jesus. God will bring us together with you, and we will stand before him. All these things are for you, and so the grace of God is being given to more and more people. This will bring more and more thanks to God for his glory. That is why we never give up. Our physical body is becoming older and weaker, but our spirit inside us is made new every day. We have small troubles for a while now, but these troubles are helping us gain an eternal glory. That eternal glory is much greater than our troubles. So we think about what we cannot see, not what we see. What we see lasts only a short time, and what we cannot see will last forever.
Thank you. So there's this kind of comparison made, or contrast even, that Paul draws out, that's also in Jesus's Beatitudes, and it's also in Ecclesiastes, between the eternal and true things, the real things that are harder to see, and what's obvious to us and right in front of us, but also more temporary and evanescent and vanishing and not as trustworthy. And I think that tension, that contrast, is what I want to focus on. And now I'll read, if it's all right, this ChatGPT translation. This is inspired, by the way, by Greg, because so often he'll say, and by the way this word, it really means this. And he's helping me to understand the actual intent of Paul or Jesus, I think, when he does that. So I thought I would see if we could do that for a whole chunk. So seeing the multitudes, he went up onto the hill, this is Jesus, and after he sat down, his learners came to him. Opening his mouth, he began to teach them, saying, Flourishing are those who are utterly dependent in spirit, for the reign of the skies is theirs. Now, the reign of the skies, that's a little bit of a weird way to say kingdom of heaven, I'll grant you, but go with it. Flourishing are the ones who grieve, for they'll be called alongside and encouraged. Flourishing are the unassertive, for they will inherit the land. Flourishing are those hungering and thirsting for rectitude. So it's not just being righteous, right? It's for justice and goodness, right? For they will be satisfied. Flourishing are the compassionate, for they themselves will receive compassion. Flourishing are the clean-hearted, for they will gaze on God. Flourishing are the peacemakers, for they'll be called sons of God. Flourishing are those who have been persecuted and pursued because of what's right. For the reign of the skies, the kingdom of heaven, again, this eternal reality, is theirs. Flourishing are all of you whenever people reproach y'all, hunt y'all down, and say every kind of evil against y'all, falsely, because of me, because of Jesus. Rejoice and leap for joy, because your reward is great in the heavens, in the skies. For in the same way they hounded the prophets before you. Okay.
I didn't realize there was a southern version.
Right? Well, it said you all, and that just bothers me, because that's a Yankee talk, right? Don't worry, I didn't stick to that version, but I thought it might help us see it afresh. So I want to start with, actually, before I dive in, any thoughts or any parallels, comparisons that already jump out to you about that version, or about this tension between eternity and what feels real, the real eternity that's unseen? And if not, we can dive in. But
I just want to say, I really like the phrase "rain in the skies." That's impressive.
so it is a pretty literal, I guess, translation, because the original heavens and skies were conflated, but that does help me, right? Because I have baggage about what heaven means, as you know, as well as anything. And I think that's an important thing to be cognizant of when you're looking at Ecclesiastes. Greg has brought out for us and emphasized the last 2 weeks how Ecclesiastes, the teacher, the speaker, continuously talks about everything under the sun. He uses that phrase a lot. So he's talking about the meaninglessness of this visible sphere we're in under the sun, but the implication is that isn't all there is, right? Beyond the sun, there's the sky in this conception, I think. Yeah.
Interesting to me was, rather than blessed, it was using flourishing. So that is when I try to think about why would it use that word. And when I think of blessed, it's like you've been gifted. But flourishing means there's something happening, dynamic, that's occurring. It's the way I kind of took that word in that translation.
Yeah, I liked that word a lot too. There's a word, I think it's makarios, I could be mistaken. The Greek word evidently is a lot richer. And boy, blessed, it's a good word. I don't feel bad about it, but I have baggage about it in the sense that I think of it as a stodgy, archaic term for some ritual that doesn't convey real life meaning to me anymore.
Well, it also has baggage like bless your heart, right?
True, yeah. Not insincere kind of uses. It's baked into old phrases that where it's lost its weight. Yeah. So flourishing, evidently, that original word would have been a little more akin to flourishing or prospering. Yeah.
I was just going to say the passage that Alan was reading earlier about the light momentary affliction, and what we use when we think of this light and momentary affliction. Oftentimes people would think, oh, it's Paul in chains or in some sort of jail cell or being beaten in the name of the gospel. When one way it could be looked at, this light and momentary affliction that's working within us, the weight of eternal glory, this heaviness, is life. These 20 years we have on earth, 80 years we have on earth, whatever it might be, that is light in comparison to eternity.
Boy, and talk about a restatement of Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I think by the way, part of the reason I'm unpacking the Beatitudes particularly, other than the kind of how classical and recognizable they are, just sort of an obvious thought to have as a teacher, right? But I've always had trouble feeling them. I've always had a little trouble getting them to have meaning to me. And I recognize them as central to Jesus' theology. They're his thesis, and I think I can get my head around what they mean. But I find actually the teachings of Ecclesiastes a really helpful lens to look at what it's saying in a better way. So there's the linguistic reason, but also just it's probably me and my psychology or something about the Beatitudes. Maybe it's how often we've heard them, but I have trouble getting them, through my heart. So I'm hoping you guys will continue to enrich kind of my understanding of it.
Well, it's also that baggage, all the years that you've been misled, or however you would say that you get like, oh, it means this, and
Like the associate class, what do you think this means? Exactly what it says, and then
Yeah.
just get back away and go on, you know?
Yeah, as if words have a crystallized,
Right.
that in 1650 that word meant the same thing to them. I think, but there must be something about the meaning of all of this that itself has meaning, right? That experience of having gotten banged my head against this verse or this passage without it sinking in. Perhaps there's some greater reality where that's more helpful. I'm just open to that. So how about the first beatitude? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And I've got here a couple. You guys feel free to pull up Ecclesiastes. You could probably pick any chapter and find something that would complement the perspective as we go through. So call out whatever parallels you find. These are just a couple to get it started. But I thought a couple of kind of perspectives from Ecclesiastes about this theme or that touch on it. Sorrow is better than laughter because a sad face is good for the heart. And again, I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun. Behold, the tears of the oppressed, they had no one to comfort them. So again, this really clear-eyed, no varnish kind of look at, no, the people who mourn, they're sad for reasons. They are oppressed. Oppression isn't fake. And that isn't what Jesus says. But it is how I can hear him sometimes. So I think just that clear-eyedness is itself instructive to me. But what else do people see here or think about here?
I would be curious to know what do people think when they think of poor in spirit?
What do you think?
Well, I'm thinking about it from this Ecclesiastes connection. So I'm thinking about just the poverty of the ego. If you're poor in spirit, you've given up on status, you've given up on egoism, self-sufficiency, success. Ecclesiastes and the Beatitudes seem like very second half of life gospel, right?
Mhm.
It's not going to make much sense to someone in the midst of still building their container in the first half of life.
Yeah, this is.
You can hear it and you can learn, but
This is while it's rattling or after it's collapsed.
right,
Yeah.
right. So, I sort of think about the poverty of the ego, and then Ecclesiastes, vanity of vanities. Not that there's not good things, but they are all fragile. They are all limited. They are all finite.
And there's some of the taste of nihilism.
Yeah, but Jesus points out that there's some good there. Where
Right.
would you articulate that?
I would say that's the beautiful paradox, is that vanity of vanities, it's all vanity. But then if you approach those vanities as gift rather than chasing them in pursuit of your ego, it's all in how you chase those things. Do you chase your job as an ego trip, or do you receive your job as a gift of grace?
How do you work that into your perspective today? Because I almost did this lesson as a version of this I almost did that I thought would just be distracting and not helpful, but I still was tempted, was to look at cultural, like pop culture aphorisms and do the same exercise, look at New Testament, Ecclesiastes, put them together and look for the wisdom in them. And one that I saw that was Andy Bernard from The Office, if you know that character, goofy guy. He said something along the lines of, paraphrase, but I really wish there was a way for you to realize you were in the good old days until they'd already happened.
Yeah.
And I feel that way. You notice, you appreciate what you have when it's gone, right? So much more easily. But how do we, because you can also do more of it in the moment. And so how do you do that? And I think that's, it touches the theme of this. Rachel, I have told me before that this beatitude is meaningful to you. Anything about what poor in spirit means to you?
Well, I've always tied it to a recognition of dependence and to those struggling with their mental health.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. You could even mental health is health, right? It
Right.
is. And the linguist or amateur linguist in me wants to point out, like, poor in spirit could be translated short of breath.
People have been knocked down.
People who aren't feeling great.
And it's really interesting to me because a lot of the modern religious cultures, you have to be happy. You know, and yet it's saying, blessed are those that suffer with depression or, you know, feel sad or are struggling. You know,
And how would you relate that to what Alan read about what is unseen versus what is seen? Because I'm wondering if there is a plane on which those struggles somehow do enrich us in the end, in a way. They aren't. That doesn't mean bad things are good. It doesn't mean mourning is joy. I mean, that's not true. But just something maybe to ponder. But any other thoughts on this one?
I think maybe, if Ecclesiastes, if it's saying, the message that there's a futility to even trying to make sense of this life, that the good that people do, sometimes they're the ones that suffer, and the people that are doing evil are sometimes getting a better deal in life that they shouldn't be, and just, he questions all these things, the pursuit of wisdom, the pursuit of pleasure, the pursuit of foolishness, and says it's all meaningless. Like, there is no figuring it out. And, so he says in the end, my conclusion is, eat, drink, and be merry. Like, that's right in front of you, and that's the best that you can do, and to find satisfaction in your work. And so, but he's not saying that the way the world works is what you should be going after. He says, really, you can't figure it out, but if there is any meaning, it's found in God. It's found in living a life in God. It's sort of at the end, at the very last two sentences. He says, so I'm going to sum it up, And I think with the Beatitudes, he's helping people see you're in a good spot. It doesn't look like it, but if you're mourning, because in Ecclesiastes he says it's better to mourn than to laugh with fools. If you're mourning, you're already in a better spot. You've developed an inner life more than every message that's coming to you is probably saying, this isn't what you should be doing. You should be going after riches and going after more education and going after these things, And I think Jesus is saying you're in a good spot. You're flourishing. It might not look like it, but in the realm to come, the realm of the skies, or whatever phrase he used, like, you're better positioned for what's coming, because you've already learned some things, and this world's not working for you, but you're better off.
And,
I wanted to say that I didn't think that you're flourishing if you're depressed. It's more
understood.
like that unseen, that if you feel like you have it all together all the time, sometimes it's harder for those to keep their faith because they think they can do it. And if you're dependent, if you're not just focused on what you are achieving, and those distractions that make you feel like you can do it all and it's working for you. You're dependent on these unseen things, then you are in a way flourishing. It doesn't look like it.
it doesn't feel like it.
It doesn't always feel like it, but you are more attached to things that are eternal that other people may not even see. And that's how reconcile, you know, how could God let people go through these mental health challenges? It's like we're not seeing that part. There's so much we don't see. And it's the opposite of what it looks like.
We build something to tear it down so that we can see it didn't matter. And some people who are in that spot, there is a level on which they actually see what. Hey, John David.
I just feel like we're homing in on his comments around ego, and you know, Roar and others have talked a lot about the false self versus the true self. Greg mentions that a lot, and this false self really does teach us that we flourish on our own. And you know, these are the vanities that we can set our life on. When in truth it's just a vapor, it's just mist. And the true self is, as Colossians says, hidden in Christ. It's that dependency that you're referencing.
Yeah, Roar's paradigm, and I don't know if if I should attribute it to someone else too, but that false self ego thing, I think that is central to this. It's a mental model of exactly what we're talking about. Hey, Jim.
You know, looking at the Beatitudes, some of these are things that we should aspire for, and some of them are conditions that we find ourselves in. And, you know, it kind of looks like the bookends these with the situations we can find ourselves in. Like, poor in spirit, my first inclination is that's not something I strive for.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a situation I find myself in. And it's easy to say, okay, I'm blessed and things are going great when things are going great. Or I'm blessed when I've got all of these things. And so he's kind of turning on the head when he's calling out things that we would normally not say are blessed or blessed. These are not when I'm flourishing.
Yeah.
Right? When I'm poor in spirit, you're blessed, you're flourishing. He's turning it on his head. When you are mourning, I'm turning on his head. You're blessed, you're flourishing. You have the opportunity to flourish. I mean, you may not actually be flourishing in that moment of mourning, but it's an opportunity to flourish. And he kind of ends, you know, if you're persecuted, that's not normally a flourishing. No, this you're blessed, you're flourishing. You're persecuted. I mean, he's turning it on its head again. That's not a flourishing kind of moment. Yes, you are. You're blessed. And it's kind of more in between that he says, here's what you should aspire for. In those in between, you know, it's blessed are you that are gentle. Okay, that's something I can aspire to be. You know, and if the two greatest commandments are loving God and loving others, well, being gentle, that means I'm loving others. How do I do that? I do gentle. I hunger and thirst for righteousness. Well, that's a loving God. I'm seeking that righteousness of God. Be merciful. Okay, I'm loving others here by showing them mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. I'm loving God. So he's bookended these situations that I don't think are flourishing and saying, yes, this is it. This is when you can be blessed. And in between, how do you do it? You love others and you love God. These are things to aspire to. And I don't know, as we were reading on this in Ecclesiastes, it kind of just, I've never looked at it that way, but it hit me as something that, okay, this is something I can flourish even when I'm struggling with my health, when I'm mourning, when I'm being persecuted. Persecuted, I'm not, society's not persecuting me, but I might feel persecuted in my job. You know, it might be a anyway, I'll look at one later.
I think I've always looked at that as those are situations that, so it's not necessarily something that I'm feeling, oh, great, I'm mourning. On the other hand, I do know that I'm on my knees more, you know, when I'm mourning. And so I guess appreciating the fact that now is a situation that has brought me there, and my relationship to God is usually closer unfortunately, than it is when things are going, smoothly. And the fact that I am feeling that level of closeness is a flourishing in my mind. I don't want to be there. I certainly don't want to, but when I'm in a situation that, my prayer life is definitely better when I'm mourning than it is other times. And I think that is something to maybe appreciate personally, that I can have that relationship while I'm going through that. And that closeness is something that is comforting, that I kind of immunize myself to when I'm not feeling those.
You wake up to how true that's always been,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. And the things that are meaningless, that look so important otherwise are very clearly meaningless then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You lose someone that you love.
Yeah.
You realize, wow,
Yeah.
I would so rather be with that person than have caught that baseball game that I, and your perspective clicks into place with loss. Jim, I'm glad you said that, because I think that difference between circumstances and, I guess, goals is that's also made this passage, I think, difficult for me to understand. So I think pointing out that he's bookending it, and that there's sort of some structure there, and he's guiding us, I think, toward the bigger truth that unites those things is helpful to me. Just want to mention that. Yeah, Deb?
To me, flourishing, when I think of flourishing also, is when you get to the other side of these things, if you get to the other side, and sometimes when you're in the middle of it and you're on your knees, the flourishing is your trust and your faith is growing, and you're becoming closer in your relationship to God. That's flourishing to me, is when my trust and my faith is growing.
I tell you, when I'm struggling, I'm not going, wow, I'm flourishing. But I do find that the false self has taken a back seat a lot of times.
Yeah. You like the person you are more.
Yeah,
You also you have to mourn the person you've been, I think, sometimes, but there is a way where you're better off. Yeah. I think we're about out of time, so maybe I should give the floor to people. Any other final thoughts or reflections on this? But this has been helpful to me, just to have this discussion and to have thought about it.
Very helpful. This last, just one thing off of what Jim said, I thought, that's, as far as transformation goes, which is, it's the circumstances we find ourselves. Sometimes we realize something to change, and other times it's the circumstances we're in that changes. They're both where transformation happens.
Yeah, where transformation happens. And that's what we need a lot of the time, probably all the time, yeah. In the unseen realm of the skies.
It's always happening.
Okay, well, thanks everybody.